Now I'm going to try and explain something that can be a little bit complicated or hard to understand when you first start installing, and that is loops or loop numbers. You'll notice that when you install a door window sensor like this, the loop number that most likely you're going to put in to your programming is loop number 2. Now the reason for that is because this particular sensor has two different functions that can be used on the sensor. One, this little tube right here on the side. See if I can zoom in on that. So this little tube is called a reed switch. And what happens is if there's a magnet that gets close to this, then that little reed switch actually pulls closed and it shows as closed to the panel. Now you can use this magnet, but in a lot of circumstances you'll see houses that don't have a magnet, but they actually have what looks like a normal hardwired contact, and yet they have one of these wireless sensors close by. And the way that they do that is that's actually run into these two terminals to the actual sensor itself. Now if you were to do that, then when you do your programming, the loop number would actually be loop number 1. So you always have to remember, anytime that you're going to use a hardwired contact, and you can even hook these up to heat detectors and different things like that, you are going to, anything that's not powered, you're going to use loop number 1 with these wires. But if you're going to use what in most circumstances you would, the magnet like this, then you program that as loop 2. Another example of that is a key fob. So this key fob has one transmitter, but it has 4 different possible functions. So you have one serial number on the back here, but each button can be programmed to do a specific function. So when you go into programming, we'll do another video on actually programming these manually, but this is loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, and loop 4. So again, to reiterate, the reason that there are loop numbers, that most sensors are just loop 1 because they only have one function. But in the case of the 5816, it has 2 different possible functions. One is through the hardwired that would go into those 2 terminals, and the other one is the reed switch magnet on the side. And here on the key fob you have 4 different buttons. There are other sensors like motion detectors that also can detect freezing temperatures and things like that. But that's the purpose of having the loops.